Opposite Gloves here, and this is the 35th video in the Kontakt from the Ground Up tutorial series, and today we're going to finish up compressors. We're going to go over two of them because they're kind of the same thing now. It's really just flavor. When you listen to it, does it compress it the way you want it to compress it? Now, we understand from the original compression video, the first one, that compression is taking basically dynamic soft things and making them louder by increasing the output, or loud things and making them softer, and your average volume will raise because now your softer things are now louder as your louder things are. So we've kind of beat this a few times. We've repeatedly talked about this. So first we're going to talk about the feedback compressor, and then we're going to talk about the solid bus. So these two actually are just different types of compression. You see, back in ye old days when everyone had their own console mixer, some of you guys probably don't even know what that is, but when you get more into audio, especially if you want to work in studios, you're going to see mixers, and mixers are the coolest thing to know how to touch and use and do. But they also usually have this thing called the producer's desk. And so what this is it's essentially a rack with all this equipment, and some people had different compressors, and since they were analog compressors made from electronic parts and they ran electricity through them, voltages that would make the compressor do its job to your sound, which we're used to sound being digital if you're an at-home producer. But if you're a studio worker, you're used to working with microphones quite a bit more on a lot more subjects, like you actually record a lot more of your instruments. Then so you're probably not using Kontakt. Then you're used to seeing your sound as voltage rather than bits. But then it usually goes into Pro Tools, and so they're really used to switching between analog voltage to bits. But anyways, you have your compressor, and different compressors sounded different because as the voltage ran through, it would literally heat up your parts, so your transistor might get a bit warmer, and as a result, it would run different than before when it was like fresh and cold. So your compression would sound different. So that's where the idea of different types of compression, because you're like, it's just crunching. I mean, this is my opinion anyways. I was like, it's just crunching volume. Like, how different can it sound? But can it sound different? But you really got to have an opinion, and I've been doing this for a while. So this may be a placebo effect type deal, but hey, it's out there. And they do really have physical changes. Just someone who's got finer tastes, better ears, they've been listening to music for a while and know what compression sounds like, will be able to pick this element out. But anyways, that's what these two are. They're just different types, and they have essentially the same controls. Now this one also has a high quality link. Again, check out my DSP series on oversampling, because that's what this does. Now, I didn't mention this in the previous videos, but this does raise your CPU. But it's pretty apparent in anyone who knows what oversampling does, like that makes perfect sense. So if you were like, oh yeah, I'm going to oversample and not increase my computer resources, I'd kind of question you. I'd be like, that's a little weird, guy. But then you also have the stereo link, and you can see that we have a link option here. And it's the same as this link, even though it doesn't have the ST in front of it. They all have the same bypass preset options. And now you'll notice this one has a threshold option. And on our feedback compressor, this is the solid bus compressor, by the way. I don't think I made that clear yet. You have a threshold, which you're used to threshold before. It's pretty much the same thing as the input here. So you have your input. Then you have attack, which again affects how quickly the compressor turns on. And you'll notice the settings are even in different. I don't know why. I don't know why they did this. Maybe it's because the compressor they were modeling used it like this. I don't know. But usually they didn't have like, I suppose it'd be on the knobs. Anyways, so that's what these are. Attack and attack are the same thing, just how fast your compression takes place. And it's in milliseconds. This one's got a little bit more precise on the milliseconds. Then you have, and if you get into scripting, you'll learn why it's like that. Then we have makeup gain. This is essentially the same thing as the output gain, only it happens in the actual compressor itself. So if you've compressed it a lot and you want to bring it up by like 5-6 decibels, you can do that. Also I have a DSP video on decibels, because decibels are weird, man, because they're logarithmic. So that you also have a makeup gain here. It's essentially the same thing as the output, only it happens in your compressor. You'll also notice that we have this nifty view, this bar here. This bar is in decibels, and it shows you the volume of your sample, the amplitude, going through the compressor itself. So it doesn't reflect the global volume that's coming out, just the volume coming out here. So if I were to play a few notes, let me turn my monitors off. So play a few notes, and then we were to turn the gain up, you'll see that it does not change here. And even if I turn all the way down, it still says there's audio going through. That's because it's being reflected through the actual compressor. We have our ratio. We've already talked about ratios before. It actually has the ratio. I've learned a little something. So if you have it like at a ratio of 4, I believe it says down here actually, a ratio of 1 to 1, nothing, 4. The exact meaning is that every 4 decibels of increase above the threshold, it'll only get louder by 1 decibel. So that's what it means, like officially, in case you were wondering and you didn't read this for some reason. Then you have your release, again, how long it takes to release it, your mix. Now this is kind of cool because this option is available on these guys, but it's not available on this guy. There's no mix option. And what's neat about it is you can have a ridiculous setting, like some crazy 30 blah, 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 and you could have your attack be ridiculous and your ratio be outlandish and do all of this. So it's a ridiculous setting right now, right? And you can turn the mix. So right now it's not affecting our sound, but you can clearly see in our bar, it's like headed off the roof, man. It's like out of here. Not good for your mix. But you can actually introduce a little bit of this insane signal via the mix knob. So how much of the process signal actually goes in and how much of it. So anyways, mix down, no process signal, and mix all the way up, all the process signal goes through. And now you got to keep in mind the reason why there wasn't like a dramatic difference right now is because this is going through another compressor that we've put in the chain. And this will take this ridiculous input and tame it according to the settings here. And all these settings are the same. So if we were to, again, set up a ridiculous setting and then introduce the mix. Actually, you know what? Let's so we get some of that distortion texture in there. Maybe that's something you want to do. And it's also reflected up here. Now, I'm sending it through yet another compressor, Maximus, for a visual effect. I haven't used it really in this one, but Maximus is also on. And so it's not letting anything go past. But you can see if it could, it would. And this is called clipping. And clipping is not your friend. It takes up space in your mix. It changes the tonal quality of your stuff, usually in bad ways. So you want to be wise about, where you invest volume in your mix. It's sort of behind the concept, what element should get the loudest. So when you're creating instruments here, see, we're not mixing right now. We're creating instruments. So you generally don't want to run your compression like crazy unless you plan to reduce the volume overall as just an overall effect. So you plan to do that instead for some reason. And you like the texture that the compression applies. So that's that. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Drop a comment or a knowledge bomb. Maybe you're like some crazy professional mixer and I've had the honor of having you watch my tutorial. Man, it'd be cool if you like drop some knowledge. Anyways, have a blessed day.